There's not but one way to the top, and you can do it with integrity and ethics. People think the only way to the top is to step on people's head. Well, yeah, but it's because they chose to quit walking.
Hey, the line is still there somewhere.
We're not evil, we're not mean-spirited. We're going to get it.
Yeah.
I'm out in war. I don't have a lot of help, so I ain't got time to sleep when everybody else is sleeping. And then I went through that, and and you got to lie to yourself, man, because that whole lions shit, bro, that is like smoke and mirrors a lot of times. A lot of times those alpha lions are in the field position on the inside, just can't show nobody, you know. That's how it is a lot. You know, I can tell you that same guy that was acting like a dominant animal around the dealership, I've gotten in my truck and drove down the street and cried and screamed a few times. But then I come back strong, nobody knew what just went down. And so, man, there's a process, man. What is a lion? Like I said, what that is it's videos that can help you motivate people to sell cars. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Haitian Kings Podcast. Today, I'm not even playing. We got a lion. When I say a lion, I mean this dude is a shrewd businessman. He don't play around. And then when I say he got things done, he got things done. The last time he come to the podcast, but we had some issues. But this time we got him back. And then we're going to catch lightning in the bottle again. Without further ado, Mr. Benoit.
What's happening, gentlemen?
Yeah, good. It's a pleasure to have you back.
That's a
here.
hard introduction.
It is.
Everybody's going to pick on me now.
No, honestly, I feel like everything that we said about you is true, especially like right now, I'm not going to lie. If I see a line, I think of you. I kid you not. I really do. Like, I really do.
Oh.
And the thing is, but let's start from the very beginning. Like, who is Benoit, Mr. Benoit? Where did you start? Who are you? Where you came from?
I'm from around here. A lot of people here know me. They know me from different things. You know, I'm a normal, everyday person historically. Was born in Sulphur, raised by a postman. You know, my dad was a letter carrier. You know, was an athletic kind of guy growing up. I would say competitive and things like that. You know, so but I had a rough childhood. Self-inflicted, you know. I probably wasn't big into education. My kids are real smart. They're in college, and I didn't take that path. You know, high school dropout, all those things. I mentioned it to you guys last time. I hate to sound like a broken record, but obviously I got a story, like everybody's got one, you know. And then you know, I met my wife in 1997-ish. We got married in 1999, so we've been married. We just had our 25th anniversary. We have 3 kids. I adopted her son, which is my son now, Jordan, who's 29. Jordan is, I recently just put him over our Lake Charles project, our little small project that we started in Lake Charles on McNeese Street. Have another son who just graduated LSU Law School. His name's Jace. He's 20. He just turned 24 last week, actually. So he's young to already. When he takes the bar next month, as long as he passes, he'll be a lawyer at 24. That's pretty young.
Yeah.
So he's sharp. And then I have his my daughter, who's the baby. She's 20, and she's a politics and law major at New York University in Manhattan. So that's kind of my spread. That's my family. And, you know, we own car dealerships. That's what we do now. Obviously, we had a journey to get there. And,
Okay,
you know,
so that's what we're interested to hear in this podcast. We want to know the journey, how it started to where it got to where it is right now.
But I swear, because when you said when you was growing up, you an postman, in my mind, I'm like, man, it'd be nice to say, man, yeah, you know, I was raised by a lion. For me, I thought you was gonna say that you was raised by a lion. But
man, let me tell you about my Paul. You know, my dad was the hardest working person I've ever met. You know, of course, we all were taught to work really hard. We were joking about it this past week at my dad's house. Of course, he was a letter carrier during the day. He would umpire or referee at night. You know, he always was umpiring, you know, baseball games or softball games or something. I thought it was cool because I got to play cut ball between the dugouts and stuff. But really, I look back and my dad was working a second job every night. Is what he was doing. I remember as a kid riding around in the middle of the night while he delivered newspapers. My dad owned a lawn and landscape business on the side, and so I remember growing up to get my allowance. We were cutting grass with my dad. I thought it was fun, but I look back, I'm like, dang, that was like his third or fourth job,
Yeah.
And he was cool. I wasn't raised by people that were bad to me, like they loved me. I was raised with a lot of love, not a lot of money, but my people that I was raised with didn't realize probably we didn't have that much money because my dad really grinded it out. I remember you got your license when you were 15 years old when I was a kid. And I remember my dad, I look back on it, I didn't realize this. Like my dad, when I got my license, got me an S10 pickup truck, a 1984 S10 pickup truck, so that I could drive back and forth to school my freshman year in high school. And I was just a punk kid. And my dad, I look back on it, my dad rode my bike to work every day. Like my pops couldn't afford 2 cars, so I got one. And so that's the way we were raised. Like I had nice shoes, I had nice, you know what I'm saying? Like and there's a lot of people out there that could probably relate because they're doing that with their kids right now. They're struggling to get by, but they don't want Johnny to have the cheap shoes while the rest of the class has the nice ones. I was fortunate to have parents that I could complain about a lot of stuff, but they worked really, really, really hard and showed us what a life ought to look like for kids. And so, I don't have the financial stress that my parents had, because we made a lot of sacrifices early on, worked really hard. If you want me to tell you my story, I try to make it quick. I told it the other day to some folks, and so I hate to draw a ton of attention, but yes, punk kid, fight, all the kind of stuff. Just imagine a punk kid in school, kicked out of class all the time. I went to 11 expulsion hearings my freshman year in high school.
You say 11?
11 expulsion hearings.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I put my hands on my principal.
Man, oh yeah, man, you was out there.
And that was a thing, and I was into martial arts and stuff. And I'll never forget when I was like 11 years old, my parents trying to get me to quit fighting had this wise idea to put me in karate because, that's what the karate movies taught back then is discipline. I think my karate teacher was more like the Cobra Kai dojo. So it just made me better at what I probably shouldn't have been doing at that time. And so, I took a finger to my face and it ended up into a submission hold and I never went back to school after that. So, fast forward a few hours, I had a Tech 9 under the seat of my 1989 Nissan Stanza that day. Yeah, I was a punk thug. I was like the white wannabe, just terrible. I was just that guy, studio guy. Like I was that dude, And so the guy that you're supposed to make fun of. You know what I'm saying? But I was all about attention, loud music, all that stuff. Started smoking weed a little bit, probably when I was 16. I was super anti-drug before that. I'm not anti-weed now. We're talking about a different time, I'm not going to share my thoughts and opinions on that because you know why? I want to sell cars to people that are pro and people that are anti. So it ain't really my dog, But back then it was like a different world and it was like, But I remember when I finally... It was like one day I remember catching a simple battery charge because a guy, I guess I can't say his name because I think he's still alive and lives around here, had given a girlfriend of mine some marijuana and I found out about it. So I whooped him pretty good. But fast forward 2 months later, I smoked for the first time. And this is how extreme my brain is. And it's still like this. As soon as I decided smoking was good, I started buying an ounce so I can keep a quarter and smoke for free. You understand what I'm saying? That's just how my brain works, And so business was always
booming.
It was always like a numbers thing in my head, 2 years later, I hate to use the word overdose because that could be really drawn into some crazy context. My stomach wasn't pumped. I wasn't, half dead, but I had a LSD experience that was super, super bad. That one thing led to another. I ended up seeking medical attention. At that time, I was desperate for God or somebody to do something to fix some problems that was going on in my head. that's when I turned to faith. I was raised a Christian by probably a normal Southwest Louisiana family that's like, we didn't go to church a lot, but like if bad stuff happened, you're supposed to go to church, because that's what fixes it, so I knew like of church and of God and all those things. But it wasn't really a super big part of my life. But when I had that experience, that was 2 or 3 weeks after that experience, I was still dealing with some traumatic symptoms and I could not get medication to fix me. Ended up going to a religious aunt of mine. She's still alive to this day. She's my spirit mother. Her name's Tammy Talbert. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. And she lives in Sulphur, in the Sulphur area. But I went to her house and I just kind of let her know what was going on. I could really I could go into very dramatic details. I was really still looked like a thug. I remember I was wearing a Troy Aikman jersey that day with some shoes and I was sagging. Probably I always had a top leaf chain around my neck or a dollar sign. I mean, I was that guy.
You was that dude.
I was that guy. you know? And so, I mean, she ended up taking me to a church, met some pastors, did some praying. I made some deals with God that day. He made some moves that day, and I honored my end of the deal that day. And fast forward probably 4 or 5 months later, I was doing anti-drug seminars in schools and working with local youth ministries to tell my story. And I had enough influence at that time from, I hate to say streets because I wasn't raised in the streets. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I had influence amongst thugs and bad people because I was one, and at that point in time was, still pretty fresh. So I was somebody that people wanted to hear what I had to say because it came with some influence, And so I guess I started thriving in that environment. Fast forward another year, I ended up in Bible college, graduated seminary, and I was off to be a preacher. That was the strategy.
Yeah, so that's a full 180.
Yeah, I was off to be a preacher. And, I had a thing for pastors' daughters, I guess. The first pastor I worked for, I was engaged to his daughter. She's happily married to someone else, lucky her. And we're all friends and they're beautiful people, but we didn't end up following through with that marriage. And then I took an interim youth pastor job in Church Point, Louisiana. There was a church on the highway there between Church Point and Rain. They needed a youth pastor. They had just rented a bar downtown that had closed. And so I went over there and opened like a youth center. That was my job. I lived in a little Dutchman travel trailer hooked up to the church in the middle of a field, just me. And so I met my wife there. Her father was the pastor of that church.
2 for 2.
But I married this one, and she came back to Sulphur with me, and we served under the pastor. My original pastor, is where we ended up right back at home after that job. We hadn't been happily married every day since then, but we are happy, and we have fought through for 25 years, and I tell you the rewards at the end of it. The rewards at the end of it. We love each other more every day now. We feel a way about one another that we didn't even know that we could when we was running the race and raising the kids and fighting about everything every day. But so yeah, I mean that's my story. I've worked for good car dealers. Very influential people in my life would be Billy Navarre.
So how you started in the car business? It's just you wanted to start like when you was in the cars that you wanted to own that, or was it never that idea?
I never wanted to own anything. I wanted to be a full-time minister, and I wanted to get married. I married a woman that had a son that I adopted, so overnight I had a family to support, and selling cars was a way to generate some income and still be able to accommodate that church, life with plans of slowly being more successful in that particular area and leaving the car business behind was the strategy. Obviously, it worked out polar opposite. Yeah. But that really was the strategy. The car business was never the plan, never was interested in it. And then most of the time that I was in the car business, I was looking for a way out of it. So no, it'd be so wrong for me to say like I dreamed of being a car dealer and my dreams came true. That's not at all the case. Just life happened.
Okay.
But you see if there's somebody that's like extremely influential in your life would be Benoit Motors. What was that?
Well, I've had a lot of men in my life that have made an impact on me. Obviously, my dad I mentioned earlier, but I think that's kind of a generic answer. Not everybody has a great dad. I understand that. I was privileged to be one that has, so that's kind of normal though. Pastors, karate instructors, there's a couple of them, but I've worked for car dealers. I've worked for Mr. Benoit. It was my first job in the car business. He's a great man. He's a great operator. He still runs his dealership in Lake Charles. I've worked for some others. But Mr. Navarre, I just remember working for him, and that was back when he did all of the training himself, and he was consumed with all the things that seem to identify with what resonates and makes me tick. Everybody needs a different coach. Somebody needs Bobby Knight to put his foot in them, and somebody needs a hug. I needed the way Billy coached, and his words just always resonated with me. And so yeah. I mean, I worked for them. That was I really learned the car business there. Then I left there and went to work for John Stelly for no other reason other than it was an opportunity for advancement. And so I went there. I worked there for 15 years. And then as Mr. Stelly started to unpack his holdings here in South Louisiana, one at a time, the Ford store was the first one that I bought. And really, I never thought about it until it happened. He had been trying to talk to me about it. I could tell he was unpacking things, and I wanted to buy a part of the Lake Charles store, the Lake Charles Nissan store, which is a store I worked at the time. So I was proposing that as my plan for future security. I mean, he was going to retire or his time was running out. I was like, let me buy this store. And so we had a few different arrangements about that, but primarily, at that point, he started talking to me about his Ford store, which was a store that he didn't really care a whole lot about. It ended up being my diamond in the rough. That's where Benoit was birthed, is at the Ford dealership in DeRidder. And so that was, that project started in 2018. Fast forward, 2019, we purchased the Nissan dealership. Later in 2019, we purchased the Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat dealership. I would say 2020, we purchased the McRae's dealerships, which is independently not attached to a franchise, but it was the Wilmart brand and that was our largest used car competitor. We purchased them in 2020. Ford called me in 2020 as well and mentioned a store in North Louisiana that was in a market that was about 30 minutes from where my brother currently was living at that time. So my brother and I talked about it, and I picked up that store, and he became a part owner of that store and kind of operated that store for me. Probably in 2022, the local competitor in North Louisiana, the GMC Chevrolet dealer in the same town that we have our Ford store in, which was Farmerville, it's in Union Parish. It's the only two dealerships in Union Parish. We bought our competitor out. So up there we have GMC, Chevrolet, and Ford. And then at our southern stores, we have Nissan, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. We no longer have our Ford dealership in DeRidder because it burnt to the ground. We were a victim of arson. I don't even know if I mentioned that to y'all last time because there was a lot of investigations and things. And we have pictures, and our security footage caught it all, but we still haven't. They still haven't caught the person. So, with that situation, we wanted to replace the Blue Oval a little bit closer. So a small Ford store this past year came for sale in a small town called Jonesboro, Louisiana. It's the only car dealership in Jackson Parish, small parish south of Ruston, south of Lincoln. We recently acquired that store. And to be honest with you, the Lake Charles store is the reason I'm here with you guys. I think you recently bought a car from us in Lake Charles. And then we met Michael Boyer at the fights, and we all met. Lake Charles is really not, like I was telling Ryan the other day, because I'm telling you, I respect the heck out of the Navarres. If I didn't own a car dealership, I'd probably buy my cars from them, the Boltons. There's just great car dealers in Lake Charles. So we're not like here trying to compete against them or nothing. Really and truly, I've been enjoying meeting local people in Lake Charles. I just we just relocated to South Lake Charles, and my family's really enjoying just the camaraderie. And I have an older son that we need to figure out if he can manage things or not. He didn't take the path that my younger two that I'm talking about, all their Ivy League educations and all. Jordan's more like I was growing up, my oldest one, who has took a little bit longer than I did to straighten up, but he's on the right path now. He's happily married now, but he has 2 children from up to wonderful mothers, but he's not married to either one of them. So, life happens. And he's responsible, and our family businesses are pretty far away from here, which is where his kids are. And really and truly, the Lake Charles lot originally started with, hey, let's park 35 or 40 cars there. We do have some customers that live down here. We can help service them if they need a loaner. There's some perks to us putting it there. But primarily, I want it's kind of a training ground for my oldest son. And then, yes, as he develops responsibility there, does a good job, takes care of the community, my phone's not blowing up with problems. As his kids get a little bit older, I could see him probably, helping us in one of the franchise locations. But right now, my kids are spoiled. I mean, it's where I'm able to put a business there, so he doesn't have to do all that right now. And that's what we're doing with Lake Charles.
Let's take it back a little bit, because so the business started you was working with Stella, but take us back before that business becomes successful. When you first bought the business, was it an easy thing to do? Can you walk us through
I'll tell you.
You go through?
Okay. So the reason that I was able to afford it, first of all, is because it was so cheap. What makes something cheap? It wasn't doing well, right? So the Ford dealership at that time that I was purchasing was it's being so poorly ran. I really couldn't even keep any of the employees, and I knew that.
You kind of said something last time, which was really funny. You said which you learned from your mentor, which was first thing to do.
Oh, you made the last dude broke. Why I want you around me? Hello, Billy told us that a long time ago. He would always tell us the war stories about the Chevy store on Highway 90 and how he ran the Chevy dealers out of Lake Charles. I remember the Crane and Simon and Cagle Chevrolet, all these old Billy war stories. And but he would always say, man, finally Chevrolet closed those 2 stores down in Lake Charles. There was no Chevy store in Lake Charles. They gave it the Lake Charles point to Billy after he ran the last 2 people broke from Sulphur. Y'all don't know that because y'all wasn't from back here.
Yeah.
I'm taking my podcast. I told Ryan this the other day. I said, man, I talk about y'all more when I get PR opportunities than Benoit. But it's true, though. Billy tells the story, and I'm sure he puts the Billy spin on it, of course, like I do my stories. Yeah. But, there was in 88 or 87, there was no Chevy store in Lake Charles. They were selling $350 to $400 a month out of the Sulphur location on Highway 90. Window units hanging out of the buildings and stuff. And Billy always said that it ain't the barn. It's not the barn that matters. It's the horses in the barn, And he always. And so when I bought the Ford store, I would identify with those stories Billy would tell. I don't know how true all of them were. I sure felt like they all were, and I believed them.
Yeah.
And I went out and created some of my own. And one of those stories is, yes, I mean, the first thing I did is I didn't know what it took to operate a car dealership. Because even though I had ran other people's dealerships, there's certain parts about the business that I wasn't exposed to. This particular business had lost $800,000 year to date, and I closed on it on 7/31 of that year. So, I mean, it was bleeding $100,000 a month. I walked away from a consistent paycheck. There's a lot of stuff to be concerned about in that moment in time, And so I remember I got rid of the cleaning crew. I got rid of everybody. My dad, the retired postmaster, I was $50,000 short on what I needed to put the deal together. He had been cutting grass, and he gave me $50,000 cash out of a box. I'm talking about old school. That's who we are. We're not these legacy wealthy people. I mean, hopefully my kids can be, but I wasn't, and my pa wasn't. You know what I'm saying? But I remember my dad gave me that $50,000. I gave him 5% of my company. He still has it, and it's worked out well for his retirement. Then he quit and came to work. He quit whatever he was doing at that time and came to work with me over there just to help me. And my dad and I would like clean the building at night and stuff. Like I had no idea like how much money we were going to make or lose. And I didn't trust the employees there. And so there was one guy I hired. His name's Jared Fark. He's the general manager right now. But Jared kind of took a bet on me. He wasn't a highly sought after car guy at that time. I couldn't afford those guys. I needed somebody I could trust that had some talent, and Jared was that guy. Never forget Jared and I, and pretty much my dad. I mean, we did everything. We painted the walls. We took that old building and put lipstick on that ugly old thing, the best way we could. I took a spot upstairs in the parts warehouse and sectioned it off and made a living space. And there was no windows or nothing, but I lived up there at night. And I never came home. And my son would call me at night. Jace would call me at night, and from LSU and his senior year in high school. And, we would talk on the weekends. Sometimes my kids would, and even my wife would drive up. But see, my wife was a school teacher at the time, and we needed her income because we didn't even know if this was going to work. So she is the cheer coach and all the sponsors. I mean, we're just normal people, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm up there doing that thing, and man, that's the story. It's really it's a story like, and it could be told very cool. I told it to you in the audio messed up last time, and it's not flowing as natural, but I will tell you, at the end of that month, I remember thinking, I'll figure out if I can afford a cleaning crew or not. I'll figure out how to put a budget together. I needed a baseline. We made $168,000 that first month.
Oh, wow.
I mean, just caring about every little thing. And it's amazing. The more you know, the less you care, like when you're young and I tell salespeople that the more people know, the more that money they talk themselves out of, but like literally just being a grinder, not knowing what I was doing and just figuring it out all day, every day. We made a lot of money. And
so it seems like you excel within basically give or take a short period of time within this whole thing. So
we did.
So what is it about you that you felt like brought that out? Okay, the quote unquote lying thing we keep making fun of or keep joking about. What is it about you when you first started you were able to grind and dig deep and push it to where it is right now? Because this ain't no small thing.
No, it's not. And I'm definitely not the same person that I was back then. It's weird because it's only been 7 years since it started. But I definitely have gone through a transformation. And yes, I was driven back then by things that I'm not driven by now. Success, the scorecard. I'm sick competitive. Sick competitive. I'm really not anymore, which is weird. And my companies are suffering for it. And it needs to be driven by somebody that's super competitive, which I'm making some adjustments now, but because as I'm evolving into something else, somebody has to backfill what I no longer am, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But like at that point in time, I was on the front lines with the troops is the way I saw it. And I mean, it was a fight, and I was going to win. I'm never going to lose a car deal to the guy down the road. It was just like, it's all a contest to me. And then just winning. Winning is a sick addiction that I've always had. And, I've been accused of, the guy, everything he touches turns to gold. That's bullshit. Like, just, there's no other option. You don't stop refining it till it turns into gold. And most people are just quitters. So, the difference between everything I touch don't turn to gold. But I never really went out, a few things that I did to toot my own horn is people never realized before I was a car dealer that I was a lot of other things. We never talked a lot about real estate. We never talked about moves our family was making. But yeah, man, my wife and I got married. I told y'all this last time. We had $60 in the bank, and we went to Astroworld for one night in Houston. Our first meal together was 9-piece chicken nugget in Benton on the way there. I mean, like, that's us. That's like who we are. Now what I'm trying to do is that person that became so successful in such it wasn't really a short period of time. The preparation time was long.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
But that 7-year period, that first 3 years, the level of success and growth that happened, that person is dead now in me. He's asleep. Right now I'm trying to fix, because that person pisses everybody off. People don't like that guy, and even want to be that guy, anymore. Money doesn't make my ticker tick anymore. You know what I'm saying? Once you kind of check the boxes, it's like, what's next, And like, I'm fortunate, man. I'm blessed, man. I'm 47 years old. If God willing and something really bad doesn't happen, I mean, we've done enough already to be okay. But what do you do for the next 40 years? So that's the mental journey that I've been going through. My wife and I both, almost like a midlife crisis, like it's, not Corvettes and girls, but it's like, what do we do? What's next? We've checked all these boxes, and what I haven't figured out how to do yet is have successful businesses while I'm not being that psycho lion that you're talking about.
Okay.
But I know that there's a level of maturity that I got to find soon where I peacefully work through people. But the only way to really do that is you got to find people that are ticked the way you used to tick. I haven't found people that care quite as much as I cared, but of course my life was on the line back then. And so, we've made some recent adjustments that I think I do have the right people in place now. And so, 2025 is a forward year for us. We have a $7 million construction project that's set to break ground in the next 3 to 6 weeks. We're building it'll be the very first new Jeep showroom around here. We're building a new Jeep showroom connected to the Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram showroom right next door to the Nissan store where the Ford store used to be. So that's going to be an exciting kind of coming home party because that was the property that it all started at. Now, the franchise operating on that property will be a different franchise, but it's almost going to be a homecoming for our team with a kind of a bigger, better, beautiful facility that'll enable us to take better care of customers. It'll be a nicer environment. So we're excited. We're excited about that. But that's kind of a little bit of my story and kind of what's popping right now, man. But
as you sing, the guy that you once were, you no longer that guy. You kind of checked all these boxes. It's kind of like that competitive spirit within you kind of left. But there's another Benoit guy, Jace, I believe you said, your oldest son, that's pretty much picking up the name, and then who basically, in a sense, got to carry the mantle.
Yeah, man, I'm interested to see how my kids shake out in this game. I have 3. One of them's got a mouthpiece that can sit here and mouth you like I can. He's not even my biological son, and it's weird. Like, he's got the mouthpiece, doesn't have quite the grind and consistency I have, but we're working on that. But he's going to mix in. Jace is going to definitely be the company, the family CFO. He's definitely going to be the guy. I mean, he's being groomed and built for accounting and legal, and he's in Dealer Academy right now. So he's going to be the next person that controls the financial leg of he'll be the person, and unless he screws up, I guess anything could happen. But what I would like to see happen is I'd like to slowly start working through Jace. Now, I have a little girl that's not a little girl anymore, that's probably the spitting image of me, the old version of me. You love her or hate her. It's probably 80-20, not to the good. Okay. If she believes it, she's passionate about it and wants everybody else to believe it too. She doesn't accept criticism. It's her way or the hop, and she is a sick grinding machine. Okay. Now, obviously that's how she got to NYU, and lived in New York at 17 years old. So she's, thing about her is, unless something reroutes her life, and only if it's God's plan, she has no interest in coming and work with the family at all.
Has that been a conversation y'all had?
Often. I've been trying to tell her how much easier life would be, but that's the thing about her. She kind of wants to do her own thing, and I'm not knocking my boys because Jace wanted to go do his own thing as well, and I think it was finally when he was in law school is when he finally committed to me. I had been trying to encourage him, man, let's go, come home. I need And maybe I shouldn't have. Sometimes I wonder, what's right or wrong. Let them fly and have their own options and then come back. But I really wanted Jace to work with me. So I worked him very, very hard. And then I think we went to NADA in Dallas about 2 years ago, which was a big convention in Dallas, automotive convention. And he came back from that convention with me like, I want to work in the family business. And so
basically you are your son's boss, right?
yes.
So does that make you be harder on him, or like maybe you kind of have like a soft
It's
spot
weird,
in your heart?
It depends on which kid it is. It doesn't seem right. I ain't telling you what's right. I'm just telling you what is, It's kind of like how do I coach each kid, on the team? Depends on if I'm a good coach or a bad coach. A good coach is going to coach them all kind of different because they all have different buttons. Jordan can own, my other son, he has to be brutally managed. Like, you can't give him an inch, he'll take a mile. When you tell him what a great job he's doing, he's going to do something not great the next day. Okay, because it's like, all right, I got some deposits. Let's go ahead and get this withdrawal. You know what I'm saying? Jace is I don't want to say a people pleaser because that could come across as an insult.
Yeah.
And I really, people just love him. Everybody.
He's just a lovable guy.
He's a lovable guy. And I think that, the company needs the next Benoit that comes through. It doesn't need to be that guy that I was because
who you were, got it where it's at.
Well, let me give you my thoughts on that. I know the price that we had to pay, and I know the reward that we have as a result of it. So is it right or is it wrong? I don't know. But what I do know is I did what I felt like I had to do. We don't have to do anything anymore, and he doesn't have to. I want him to operate within his character. I don't want him. Okay, here's the deal. This is how did Benoit become something? I tell a story sometimes like this. I'm like, let me just explain to you. I'm considered a loudmouth or this, or I've got a lot of. You guys are like, hey, he's the lion. Everybody else is like,
that
narcissist, blankety blank. I'm like, I get it because it's probably the same behavior that's perceived in two different ways by different characters.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I agree with you.
So like, what's right, what's wrong? It really doesn't matter. But I know with me, to get where I got, when you come from nothing, you got to be recognized. You don't just walk in a room. Like I talk about the room, like it's weird because just here recently, I'm not saying that our family is some kind of, we're not, but like when I see my picture in the lanyard for the number 3 locally owned business in Calgary Parish, $222 million. And I see my name behind Navarre Auto Group, which is a legacy family, legacy organization, at number 1, nowhere close to those guys. Stein Lumber Company, which is a legacy family. I mean, the Steins are just, and then who's the Benoits? You see, like established in 1980 something, established in 1970 something, established in 2018. Man, that stuff it's really surreal. So how does a guy like that get in the conversation with these guys? And I would say the only way to get recognized is to make noise.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with that though, because I feel like that's a double-edged sword with it.
It is.
So you had to be that guy to be that success.
But the next one doesn't have to be because we're in the room. Like when you get in the room with these powerful people, these names, influential people, like, and you have an idea or something, like you got to, here I am. I got an idea. Somebody's got to invest in my, you know what I'm saying? You got to be the loudest guy in the room or nobody's going to even recognize you or know that you're there. But what happens when everybody notices you're there? A couple people might like what you have to say. The other people just wish you'd shut the F up. Yeah. Right? So, and I didn't say the word, I said F, So I'm just saying like, so you're going to, in that environment, somebody like me is going to have some people that say, man, look at that guy go. And man, listen to that guy, he don't shut up. I mean, you're going to get both of those, right?
Absolutely.
Versus a family that's like, this is their second generation or third generation in the room. They don't have to talk.
Yeah.
That's them. That's the Navarres. That's the Steins. And that, using the context of.
Yeah,
but
my son now, we're not Navarres and we're not Steins, and I'm not putting our family in that category because we're not, but we're the Benoits, okay? And the Benoits have done good things. We do good things. We're known to have successful businesses. We operate with integrity. People know that It's not smoke and mirrors. We've accomplished a lot now. And so my son, with a meek personality and a humble spirit like he has, I think he will be able to lead differently and hopefully maybe more effective than me, because I could see that people are going to like working for him better. You know, I was a very intimidating boss back then. And some of the people that worked for me back then quit, and we've reunited, you know, and we've had these talks, you know, like, hey, I was Bobby Knight, man. I mean, I was throwing chairs across the conference room and stuff. I mean, I was just what it was, man. Like, if the customer came in a lot and they left and you didn't bring them in to meet me, you better get in your car and not come back till they're with you. And I mean,
but I gotta ask you,
it's the truth.
We kind of briefly talked about it last time. As you said, you were the guy who was in the room barking the loudest.
Yeah.
Right now, in your current position, and also in the transition you're currently having in your personal life.
Trying to figure out how to be quiet. I still haven't figured that out yet.
But now you don't have your hands on things no more. It's kind of like you gotta guide things from away. Like, how are you taking this new?
It's a challenge. I'm gonna figure it out though. Like, I'm more confident right now than I was last time we talked. I've set up my office. See, I wanted to buy all the dealerships in DeRidder and do this thing and build this 100-acre compound in Beauregard Parish. And, you know, that wasn't the plan. That didn't happen. I think we talked about how those dealerships were sold out from underneath a commitment that was made to me. And that was when I really learned a lot about rich people in that scenario, who I guess, you know, I really learned some tough business rules, getting cowboyed by some old families in DeRidder, you know? And so I you know, that was a big lesson for me. So that's when we repivoted as a family. We said, what are we going to do? We wanted to expand. There's nobody in Lake Charles that wants to sell a franchise, you know, but this is where we want to be as a family. Like, I love South Lake Charles. I love Sulphur. I love this community, and I want to be a part of it. Nobody wants to sell a car dealership. So what do? I've said, okay, we're going to do these. We're going to expand our small puddles. We're going to take the things that Lake Charles is good at. And let me tell you, Lake Charles has great car dealers, and it's not just me. It's not just in the bar. I mean, the Boltons, Mike Will, I can name, they're all, I ain't got to, whether I'm behind hole buddies with them or what. I mean, none of that matters. I'm personal friends with some. I'm not personal friends with others. I spoke to Corey Tarver on the phone today. Like, Lake Charles has great car dealers. So I'm not even really itching to come here and compete with those guys. But I want to live here, and it's the profession that I'm in, and it's a big piece of my family's portfolio. So I've converted my office. We bought the new house out here in South Lake Charles, and part of that acquisition was converting my office to a mobile, management-friendly, remote scenario. So I'm kind of learning how to be techie. I'm learning how to deal with Google Meets and look at my team from all over the state and talk to and do a morning sales meeting if I want to for the people in, you know, North Louisiana dealership just from my desk. And, you know, I'm learning how to do that interactively. And it forces me to be still, which is not go into a bunch of rooms, which is something that my old character was, let's run it. I mean, everything was hands-on in your face. So like, I'm making like a lot of attempts to kind of, you know, my childhood hero was my grandfather, Paul Johnson. Not because he worked hard or whatever. I'm sure he did at some point, but I remember Paul Johnson smoking unfiltered Pall Mall cigarettes on the porch swing. But he was the most gentle, meek. I loved him. Like, everybody in that tribe loved Paul Johnson. And like, my whole life, I wanted to figure out how to be that by the time I was 50, which is completely polar opposite of what got me to this point. But the way I remember my Paul Johnson is probably more powerful than I remember anyone. And he had less money than everybody in my life. Right? And they were dirt poor with 9 kids and 2-bedroom house. So money is not everything. You know, we are blessed, and God has poured his blessings on our business, and the community has helped us, and we've given a lot back, and all of that's good. I don't want our businesses to cease to exist. So yes, we're building a layer of leadership to take us more into a long-term strategic plan rather than this explosive growth plan that I oversaw. And in order for that to happen, some of what got us to this point cannot be a part of that next chapter. And I think I'm a big part of that, what can't be a part.
But let me ask you this: do you think? I mean, because that's the thing is there is no right, there is no wrong
There's
in
not.
this situation. But why you trying to run away from that guy for? Well, I mean,
Yeah,
why?
I feel like you're running
I feel
away.
like
I feel like
because-
you start to recognize this guy as the bad guy, and now
Why?
you're like, I don't want nothing to do with
He
this guy.
wasn't a bad guy. He's a misunderstood guy.
Yeah, but why you want to best? That's the true you, though. That's. I think that's
No,
the true version of
I'll
yourself.
always be that. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like you can't remove that, but there is ways to do what I did and do a lot less damage around me. I'm just being honest with you. Like I'm older now. Hey, I'm not saying I did anything wrong because I never did. Like, I mean, I was always above board in everything I've ever done in every business. But I always expected people to be instinctively like me. And, and I was never a student. I wasn't a good student in school. I wasn't a good student at dealer school. I never went to dealer school. I was dropped in a seat, and I'm an instinct guy. I do everything out of instinct. Instinct cannot be taught. Processes sustain businesses.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm not a process guy. I'm an instinctive guy. I walk into one of my businesses and I start making big moves. It's in my nature. And I keep people off balance and all of that. There's a recipe for all that. There's a place for all those things. But the phase of my business now, I really am excited to not make it corporate because it's locally owned, but like I want it to be a lot more like if something happens to Jason Benoit, heck, I mean, if something happens in a plane, like I fly, I mean, if something happens to me, what's the condition of what am I leaving for other people? I hope I'm here another 50 years. I want to live to 100. I want to chase my mama Earlene who's still kicking. Okay. But it's irresponsible to run things the way I've always ran things. I had to be involved all day, every day with a lot of things because most everything was instinctive. And, my son is going to Dealer Academy. Jared Fark is a process-driven guy. Chris Boyette, who's my partner at the stores down south, is great at certain things. And so what we've been working on in the past years, what's a long-term recipe for peace, harmony amongst people, relationships, employees, customers, and also success? Because a lot of times peace is not successful. Everybody can be getting along and hugging and kissing. If you broke, you broke, Doc.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. If the 10th roll around and you ain't got no settle-up check, you ain't staying if I kiss or hug you or not. And so our old environment was always such an aggressive environment. And listen, the car business has been like back when I sold cars at even Navarre and Lake Charles. I remember vividly. It was very regular, like fist fights over split deals. Like the car business is not, it is that cut now, but it's becoming so much less of that now. Obviously the internet, society, people are soft. Me too, all of it, throw it out there. I ain't saying it's bad. It's what it is. I ain't got an opinion about it. It's what it is. It was easier the other way. It might've been wrong, but it was sure a lot easier.
But in the car business, I'm thinking like that's when you're a salesman, that's what you want though.
Yeah.
You want those
You want
guys,
those killers.
You want the killers.
You want that competitive guy that don't want to lose.
Yes. There's nothing wrong with that.
So because
And so I want to hire those people. There's a place for that competitive nature in every organization.
But do you teach like if somebody come in and you can see like a little young guy he got the hit factor, but it's just like you. He never go to the schools, but you feel you don't hire those people. And
That's the people I look for. That's the people we look for. Most people in the car business that become success stories, they have a rough past.
But because in a sense, what I'm thinking about everything you just said, I'm trying to grasp everything all at once, and I'm thinking, how can you be a nice guy and a competitor at the same time? Is there such thing?
Dude, let me tell you, and I'm not trying to name drop this guy. Like, I didn't talk to Ryan Navarre for like 15 years. But growing up, I went to school with his brother, Jareth, okay? And Mr. Navarre, Mr. Navarre was my coach. Jareth and I played basketball together. But when you're a competitor, stuff becomes not friendly. It's just even it's unspoken. Like we just, I got in the car when I left, when I was no longer working for that family. We just didn't talk no more. I wasn't ugly. We just didn't talk, right? And so now, Ryan and I have caught ourselves socially in a couple of situations in the past 6 months or so where I can tell you that I was going through a tough time last year. Okay. I was going through a very tough time after the fire. My head was mixed up. As a leader, my people didn't know that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to put on the face. Oh man, somebody burned my business down. What's that going to do for your reputation? You always got, I got pictures of the people that did it, and I'm showing this to the fire marshal. I'm the one that figured out that somebody burnt the business down, not the fire marshal. But when there is arson involved, you catch them. They say, it was just stress. My head was, what do I do? And then there was some big decisions with Ford coming. And I'll be honest with you. You said, how could this all start about? How can you be nice and be a competitor? I texted Ryan that day and said, hey man, I need to talk to you if you got time. And this dude drove to my house. I ain't never done nothing for this dude. You know what I'm saying? He drove to my house in the middle of the day. We sat in my courtyard and talked for 4 hours. He didn't get nothing out of that. I've called him once since then. And it's like, there's got to be a way. You know what I'm saying? I know his dad never figured out how to. I know.
Clearly, his daddy doing that created the line.
His daddy never figured that out. Okay, his daddy would have not come to me and gave me encouragement if I was at a competitive dealership. But there's got to be a way. There's just got to be a way. And my heart doesn't want to fight all the time anymore. They just don't. I don't want to fight all the time. But I believe that the car business is evolving into less of that fighting competitive nature, into more of who's going to be the best business people. Because, the internet and the education of the customers, it's not this, hey, back when I sold cars, people were looking at the sale papers. They were making a list of cars they needed to go look at, and they were going to get up on a Saturday morning, or they were going to take a day off, and they were going to go look at all these cars and drive all these cars at this dealership, and they're going to buy one at the end of sometime that day. Yeah. And people say, well, yeah, they're going to drive one and buy their favorite one. I say, hell no, they're not. They're going to drive one until they run into a salesman. Then they're going to buy that one. That's back when it was like, that's how you coach people. Now it's like, the buyers come in sometimes to do their paperwork. A lot of times they never come to the dealership. Everything's done behind a keyboard. So there's less, it's more of whoever's going to have the best, the most profitable margins is going to be the person that ends up being the best, cleanest operator and learns how to streamline processes, consolidate expenses, because the customer is educated and they're only going to pay what they have to pay. What do they have to pay? Well, I don't know. They Google the car they want to buy, and there's 15 dealers trying to whore it out. Yeah. So it's less, let me just fight with you back and forth on a car deal. It's not really that way, anymore. You actually have to have good employees. And to have good employees, you have to have tenured employees, not a high turnover. When I was doing it the way I used to do it, I didn't care if people quit or not. If you do it my way or get out, all that was good for that season. But now there is a time to say, you know what?
It's time to evolve.
Pipe down, son. It's time to, it's not that Jace is not a lion or Jace is not a killer or that Jace is a people pleaser. He might just be what we need, a different version of me. That operates a little bit different. And so I don't know, man. We'll see.
So like car dealership, right? They always have like people looking at it from the outside. You always feel like the dealership always trying to get one on you.
Yeah.
They always got those fees. And is that as a car guy, is that a true statement from people outside looking in?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. I'm gonna tell you the truth.
Okay.
We got to make money. And we don't always. I would like to average $3,000 profit on a used car. We don't right now. During COVID, it was averaging way more than that. On a new car, we just hope we don't lose money selling it. Because the new cars are, back during COVID, they didn't have, they're the supply and demand. But right now, no, if you're buying a new car, unless you're just going in there uneducated, if if you're shopping on someone's website, I mean, we have those cars priced down to like people have no idea. We go to the furniture store, furniture's marked up 100, 200%. Vehicles are marked up 3%. There's 3% markup. So if you got that's not a lot of markup. There's some dealer holdback, there's certain programs, but there's hooks to all those programs. Like your customer service scores have to be this and this has to be that, and you got to sell this many cars. And if you do all that and the stars all line up, you have a bonus payment at the end of the month. Like new cars is not something that dealers make. We hope that we buy used cars correctly when we take yours in on trade. We don't plan on making money on the new one. It's great if we can, but we generally don't. And we hope that we're able to buy yours correctly, run it through the shop, remarket it, and make some money on the used car. But no, man, there's no big home run.
Okay, so because
deals.
To me, I always feel like when you go to a dealership. So I'm glad you say it like
Before the internet, it probably was a lot like that. Because I remember in the late 90s, in the early 2000s when I was selling cars then, and the internet, I'm not saying it wasn't there, but it wasn't like such a big thing. It was a lot of that still back then. Okay. But dude, it's not anymore. It's just not.
Because when I feel like a dealer, you go to buy a car and the dealer say, I'm only making $200 from this deal. I feel like it's hard to believe.
It is, but I'm tell you the truth. He might be lying to you when he tells you that, but he might not be. Because there is car deals. There was a deal. I took let me tell you. I took somebody got a tongue lashing over it, but I was looking at our deals from 2 days ago, and we had sold like 6 cars and lost 10 grand that day. Now, somebody says, well, why would you do that? Well, it was aged inventory, which is bad assets. So, I have to get rid of it. Like, it's not moving. So it doesn't matter that I may have bought it at an auction for a customer. Like if I buy a car at an auction 90 days ago and it doesn't sell, well, I bought it to auction 90 days ago. I spent $500 getting it transported to the dealership. Let's do the math. Buy a $20,000 used car, or I take a $20,000 used car in on trade. 20 grand, I'm gonna spend $500 getting it to the dealership. I'm gonna spend $500 to $800 sending it to a used car inspection, making sure a technician looks at it. I'm gonna own this $20,000 car for $21,500, and 90 days from now, it's only worth $17,000, $18,000. So can I make a bunch of money selling that car? Well, if I go to the auction, it's worth $17,000, $18,000. So even though I own it for $21,500, I'm happy to sell it for $20,000 that day, and I really lost $1,500. Then there's the cost of holding the goods, because we pay interest rate unless you got deep pockets. All those cars that we're paying interest on a line of credit. It's called floor plan, and the rates got up to 8%. So our largest bill last year was like we were paying $150,000 a month in floor plan expenses. That's just interest. Well, the cost of that goes somewhere and makes the cost of those goods higher. So yes, it costs a lot of money to sell. And then guess what else happens? The salesman that wants to get paid 25% of the profit, because that's his pay plan, the manager that needs his 10%, the finance guy that needs his, the girls in the office have to do all this title work. We got to pay the light bill. We got to do all this stuff. And none of that stuff cares that we lost money. They're not going to take 25% of the loss. We're still paying them on deals like that a minimum commission. So it's not uncommon to lose thousands of dollars. I lost $7,500 selling a vehicle 3 days ago and the purpose of it is we took it in on trade and somebody didn't drive it well, that one. And so we gave the person a bunch of money for a car that needed an engine. We lost $7,500 on a diesel trade-in. These are real stories that happen.
But okay, so you're telling me all this, so all the negative side of it. So give me the positive side of how you really actually make money.
Well, because we don't. Somebody walks in the dealership and says, "This is the guy that just blows my mind. How much you want to give me? Cash money? You got to give me a better price. I'm paying cash money." I'm like, well, dude, if you're paying cash, it's more expensive now, because I was going to try to make a little money when you finance with me. Because I'm not a bank, but when you go to a bank, who sits down and does a loan with you? A loan officer. Well, if you go to the bank you don't do your own loan paperwork. They pay salaries and people in that bank to process your business. Well, banks at car dealerships, our rates are not higher than the banks, but if you do the financing with our gentleman at the car dealership, we get commission from the bank because we're brokering the paper, right? Like, so you can go to the bank and do it yourself, or you could come here and do it with me. The whole pie of the profit of the car deal, we're talking about front end, which is what we own the hard asset for versus what we pay for it. Any finance commission, which is okay, the Capital One did this deal or Ford Motor Credit, but our finance person's processing the loan. So there's income that comes from that. There's finance products, extended warranties, things of that nature. There's profit margin in that. Obviously our service and parts department, there's profit margin in that. So, but if you're really talking about, hey, I got a checkbook, I'm going to buy a new car tomorrow, I'm not buying it, I'm not doing it, I'm writing a check for it. Unless you're silly, that guy ain't making hardly no money. Like, unless you just walk up there and write a check for what's on the window, plus tax, title, and license. And then he's making pretty good, he's making he's making some money then. But how many of y'all do that? Nobody does. But nobody does anymore.
Let's kind of switch gear a little bit to the store in Lake Charles. I know it's been open for at least, because I live right there in the area. I drive in front of it all the time. I want to say it's been open for like, 6 months? Probably a bit longer than that.
Yeah, it's really just about to open is kind of how it's really going. It's been open. It was a weird deal, dude. I was driving down McNeese Street. I'm like recently mentioned, I lived in Lake Charles, and so I was driving through there. We bought property. We have 3.5 acres between Mark Dodge and Lake Charles Toyota, and I wanted to develop that. I bought it to develop a pre-owned dealership and service center here. And I was driving down McNeese Street, and I saw those that
it used to be like another
that they were moving out. I was like, man, what a great location. And and I went in there and I did a 12-month lease, paid for the lease up front before I even told my business partners. I said, oh, we've already done this. And I think that 12-month lease is up in about 6 months. But we parked cars there, but we really haven't like lit it up. We haven't hired employees. We haven't done much. Like Jordan and I are about, my son Jordan Benoit, we're about to see what he can pull off. We're looking for 3 specific employees for that location to work with Jordan. I'm very unique about it. There's certain in the car business, everybody wants to recruit other people's employees and overpay them and all these things. I really want to be careful with the relationships I have with my friends in Lake Charles. So I haven't allowed my managers to recruit other people's employees, which is again part of this nice guy approach, But
I think we need to start calling you a line.
You become a little cat now, right?
A little kitty cat. Until you jab me. Then we can all go broke. And what I know I can do is make it back. I didn't wake up with it. So, honestly, I do not want to bother. I'm not allowing the people there to recruit from my friends, employees, staffs here in Lake Charles. We're not trying to poke a bunch of bears. I really want to see if my son can recruit people that have not been in the car business, and we can train and develop them and have a nice business here. And I believe that we can. I believe it'll complement our franchise stores. It'll never be really big, the thing on McNeese Street. I think it'll complement a service that we're able to provide for our customers that live here that maybe chose to buy a vehicle from us at our North stores or at one of our franchise stores. And so it'll be nice to have a face local without having to maybe drive forever. If we need to help you with service or something, we'll figure that out. But the primary objective is really, it's a business, and I'm gonna train my son through. That's really the objective for the Lake Charles lot.
And I gotta give a little shout out to Josh,
Gary.
Yeah, which was the car salesman that I dealt with. He was really nice, and we had like a little bit issue towards the end, and then he stood up and helped me figure the whole thing out. Don't need to give out no details. But one thing I gotta say, I've noticed about that dealership in McNeese, you guys have a lot of high-end cars, like electric cars. Y'all got electric Hummer. Y'all had electric Porsche, which was I purchased, and y'all kind of have like different kind of cars that I don't see within the area.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out what the niche was going to be, and at first I kind of just let Chris Boyette, because he's the used car guy that works. This is my partner actually. Here's the thing about Lake Charles, and that's what we decided, because we live here, and I'm just being very transparent about it. This is an important location to us that it maintains a good appearance, because we live here. Chris lives here. I live here. My other partner, Trey Broussard, lives locally. We don't have big businesses in Lake Charles. And we wish there was one for sale. Maybe there will be, and we'll buy one day. But for now, we just know that if I buy a billboard on Interstate 10, it's going to cost however many, a couple $1,000s a month for a billboard. What that store is for us, it's a development ground for Jordan. But we do keep nice stuff there. We don't keep a lot of stuff, because if I load that lot down with 50 expensive cars, it's not going to sell 50 cars. It's going to be too lopsided, from an expense standpoint. So I'm like, guys, we'd like to sell 20 to 30 cars there with the situation we have right now. I'm not putting a crazy objective out there
like
for
a month?
In a month. I'd like to sell 20 to 25 to 30 cars in a month. And that means that we're going to stock 25 to 30 cars there. Now, what we're going to do there is make sure we have nice stuff, because we kind of feel like it's local. It's kind of like our local billboard. Like it's the smallest pimple in the Benoit organization, right? But it's the only one we have down here, which is where all the people that we know and love and trust and our families. So even though it's a modular building on McNeese Street, anytime you do go there, yes, you can walk inside, hopefully meet somebody like a Josh Geary who we're developing, and he could go over, 1,000 vehicles with you that we have statewide that are all available for sale. We can't sell new ones to you at that lot, but from a used car standpoint, we have 7 rooftops in the state of Louisiana, and they all have used cars. 25 to 30 nice pieces are going to be parked there that will catch people's attention, that kind of say, wow, that's not just a crappy little used car lot. That's a nice place. We need it to look like that.
And that's very smart of you, honestly, because that's what brought my attention. Because I remember the first time I drove past it, and I saw that electric Hummer. I'm like, down here in Lake Charles, oh, that's interesting. And then about a week later, and I saw, quote unquote, my dream car parked there. And I'm like, that is the last place on earth I expected to see that car parked at, which kind of brought my attention. And then
we want people to know, that it is not, yes, that is a same place that a guy named Tommy Derwin, who's another nice person, owned a place called McNeese Auto Alley. It's still that place, but it's owned by an organization now that has a lot of resources. We have a lot of the cars there have been through our factory service shops before they get parked there. We're not selling junk. Our reputation is still matter. You cannot operate a franchise store without a good reputation, and that's the thing. People always I don't want to buy a new car from this guy anymore because blankety blank this. So man, listen, these businesses in Lake Charles that are operated by these families, these dealerships that are operated by these families I mentioned earlier, you don't stay in business not caring about people. Their reputations matter. You cannot be in the new car business with a bad reputation. And so when we chose to put Benoit over here, our buybenoit.com location, it's that whatever reputation, whatever business practice we have at our franchise locations, which are not in this market, we have that same level of integrity over here, because it all will impact the brand, the name. So yeah, that's a modular building on McNeese Street with some guys in it that are in training. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to go try to pull the wool over on a new salesman, you can probably find one there, and I'll
I got a pretty good deal. I can
let me ask you this though, because I remember talking to you before. I didn't know that. That's I'm thinking if I wanted to, even though they got a Chevy dealership out here, I can just, if I had money, I can open another Chevy.
You can't.
I didn't know that.
You can't. Man, let me tell you, and that's the rules. It doesn't matter how much money you have. For example, Bolton, Buddy Bolton and King Bolton and Jeremy Swallow, those guys have the only Ford store that's going to be in Lake Charles. It doesn't matter who has how much money. Now, if Ford ever decided that Lake Charles grew enough where they was going to have a second one, like a Houston has maybe 4, then it's a big process, and everybody got to bid on it and interview for it. It's a big deal. So yeah, man, I can't do any new car business down here. Now, I have a Chevy store in North Louisiana. I have a GM store in North Louisiana. I have 2 Ford stores in North Louisiana. And I still have the Nissan and Dodge Chrysler Jeep store in DeRidder. So it's Nissan, Dodge Chrysler Jeep. Yes, I'd like to be looked at. I'd like for people to give us an opportunity at the DeRitter stores to earn your business. We'll do remote delivery and all that. But as far as like the stuff we have in North Louisiana, it doesn't work for the customer to like buy it here where they're going to do your service. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't blame them for like, hey, if I bring you a Chevrolet to Lake Charles, I can sell you one. And if you're my family member or close friend, I expect you to still buy it from me. But like the general public, like if I'd love to sell you a bunch of Chevys and GMC in Lake Charles. Problem is, do you really want to get treated good in the service department in Lake Charles? And if you do, you probably should buy it at that store. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know that seems like I'm shooting myself in the foot, but I would say that to a DeRitter customer or a Union Parish customer or a Jackson Parish customer, like unless they burn you, like if you've had a bad experience and you just don't want to buy from them, hey man, go to buybenoit.com. We can do paperwork in your driveway on any of the new cars that we have. No, that's not the plan, and that's not what we're trying to do here. Honestly, I went to a couple fundraising events lately here in South Lake Charles that I'm enjoying being a part of the business community here. Even though it's a small part. So I'd like to keep things. I definitely want that. We want to start there. I don't know where it expands or if it just sits there just like that. But I do think eventually we're going to have a service department down here as well. So we'll see how that looks whenever it happens.
So, but like right now, you don't have other like business in mind, not just to have to do anything to do with cars.
We do right now. We're not. I'll go ahead and mention it because I'm actually going to New York next week. We are looking at, of course, we have a lot of real estate holdings. We have, the car dealerships, and that's primarily our portfolio. But we are looking into it's called 5 Iron Golf. It's like Top Golf with a spin, nightlife, like a pub and grill and golf simulators. If you go to 5irongolf.com, we're looking at some property currently in the area by where the casinos are. And we're going to like a discovery day. We've been through all the prelim meetings for that franchise. And so hopefully that's sometime in the next year, we'll be clearing some land and building. I don't want to say a Top Golf because it's about $25 million to build a Top Golf, and that's not what we're doing. But it's going to be a super, super cool, similar thing.
Would it be affiliated? Sorry, let me interrupt you. Would it be affiliated to the Benoit name, or would it be something by itself?
No, it will just be part of our family portfolio. Will own it, but it's a franchise. It will not be a part of it. Won't be. It'll be 5 Iron Golf.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be 5 Iron Golf. They have locations in the Northeast. They have a couple of locations just popped up in Dallas, but they're really just getting down here. They have some locations in the UK. It's a big outfit. So it's actually a small subsidiary. Like the people from Top Golf, the creators of Top Golf and the CEOs of Top Golf sit on the board. This is like for areas that, if you build a $25, $30 million Top Golf in Lake Charles, it's not going to cash flow properly. It's just not big enough, Okay. So this is like a step down from that, but it's almost like bowling, it's like going to an old school bowling alley, except you're playing golf games with people while you're having drinks and burgers and and some cool lighting and music and DJs. It's going to be very nice. Like during the day, it'll be more of a professional environment, like a golf environment with pro shops and lessons going on and all. And then at one point during the night, it will kind of turn into a night spot.
Okay.
So that's.
I need more of those in Lake Charles.
We sure do, for sure.
Well, I think Lake Charles is ready for a lot of that kind of stuff. And man, I'm really looking to. I want to be a part of the business community in Lake Charles. I really, not that I don't need to rub elbows with people. That's not what I'm talking about. I like it here. And it's weird because I'm from here. The businesses that I've had the opportunity to buy are not here, but I live here. And now that I have been, like I said, I went through that phase of achieved some success and I'm a saver. I live very below our means, always have. So we're good now. It's kind of like, okay, we're positioned. Let me get the car dealerships to where part of the portfolio and they're running themselves. And, Jace is the CFO and Jared and the car team is running the dealerships. I mean, that's kind of what I see. But then what is the Benoit going to do next? I mean, let's think about other businesses that I can buy in Lake Charles. I would love to have I think we're ready for a nice restaurant that's not at the casino,
Oh yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I mean, a high scale restaurant that's not at the casino, like I ain't a restaurant guy. I don't know nothing about a restaurant other than I'm heard it's the hardest business in the world to ever make it in. But to me, I'm like, man, if the right chef from a big city ever spun a plan on me, like there's nothing I wouldn't consider doing in Lake Charles. If I thought it would make sense.
Yeah, that's a business.
You're a businessman, and like you said, you're
and so right now my brain is not thinking about automobile registration reporting and competing with the guy. I'm thinking like, man, I need to put some boys there doing that. But my mind wants to do something in Southwest Louisiana a little closer to home. And trust me, we're training Jordan to run the old McNeese Auto Outlet, and it's a cool place to get a car, but that's not going to scratch my itch, I can promise you.
But let me ask you this, though. Like you said, you kind of want to, get within the business, within the community. Would you be interested in investing in somebody else's
That's
thing?
kind of my MO. I mean, literally, I'm enjoying that. I'm opening myself up to those type of things. Now, do I want to interview people all day with has crazy ideas? No. But, don't call me.
On that show, what it's called?
But Shark Tank.
Shark Tank, yeah.
Because I'm not those guys either. I'm just a guy with a little bit. But like the people that are close to me that I love, I have my niece and her husband are doing some flip houses now, and it makes me feel so good to be able to enable them financially. Now I make money too, being a bank, okay, it's business. But I want to find people that have dreams, that have the grit, and I just want to resource them and maybe mentor them. And like God will have to. A lot of things will have to happen there. I'm not looking for people to call me and apply for this position, not at all. Okay, don't. That's a quick way to not get it, but like. I'm looking for opportunities to just fill a different need in me.
But let me ask you
this next chapter, I guess, if you will.
Clearly, you're a successful businessman, and then you got the it factor within you. Like you said, you move on instinct, and then the instinct like yours can't be found everywhere. Mm-hmm. So would you be at least, let's just say, open or willing to, I guess you may say, giving people advice? Oh, yeah. Man, I love that stuff. I love it. Hey, I got a nice office at home. I got a picture of a lion.
No, I think I got on my wall. I got the Ark of the Covenant, but I got the Godfather, and I got a Godfather scene with him and his son, him looking over his son at the desk, and then I have a silverback gorilla holding his little baby monkey. That's the two art pieces I got on the wall in my office.
Yeah, that's nice.
So, but no, man, I the idea of being able to hey, grow old and people come to the office for counsel and, have a cat on my shoulder. I mean, who don't want that kind of stuff? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But no, man, it really is when you check the boxes, it's like, what is there to check? Like, I genuinely love to enable people that have done everything they can do and they're just trying to figure out how, and they just want to know if I'm not smart, and I didn't go to school, and I'm not a good educator. I got a last question. I actually want to ask you, right? Let's just say you got this young kid that approach you. They driven, they quote unquote got that lion in them, whatever. They that competitor that you seek so bad. Would you advise them would you push him toward being the lion, or would you try to push him toward being the peaceful, nice guy? Oh, no, it's a process, man. It's a process. I don't know if I'm just going through a midlife crisis, so I'm not telling people what I'm doing is what they should do. There's not but one way to the top, and you can do it with integrity and ethics. People think the only way to the top is to step on people's head. Well, yeah, but it's because they chose to quit walking. Hey, the line is still there somewhere. We're not evil. We're not mean-spirited. We're going to get it. Yeah. And then if they don't want to go get it, we're going to get it. We're going to turn around and sell them a little bit of it. Be what you are. But I think it's true. I mean, when people get older, I'm telling you, I'm getting older. It's depressing to think about. I think when you age a little bit, because in my heart, I still feel like a young punk kid, but really I got a lot of gray hair. I'm almost 50, dude. And the older I get, the more I don't want to be that. I think there's a season for all those things. And there was a season for me to work for Mr. Navarre. There was a season for me to work for Mr. Stelly, and those were seasons of servanthood. Mr. Stelly thought about wanting this truck washed, I was going to get it washed. You know what I mean? Didn't have to ask me. You know, I was going to be a good. There was a season for that, and then, and then there was a season for I'm out in war. I don't have a lot of help, so I ain't got time to sleep when everybody else is sleeping. And then I went through that, and and you got to lie to yourself, man, because that whole lions shit, bro, that is like smoke and mirrors a lot of times. A lot of times those alpha lions are in the fetal position on the inside, just can't show nobody, you know? That's how it is a lot, you know? So, I can tell you that same guy that was acting like a dominant animal around the dealership, I've gotten in my truck and drove down the street and cried and screamed a few times. But then I come back strong, nobody knew what just went down. And so, man, there's a process, man. What is a lion, man? Like I said, what that is it's videos that can help you motivate people to sell cars. That's what it is. That's what it is.
But I got one last question. What you want, like, because I like now since we started the year, I like to ask people this question. When all said and done, what you want your legacy to be?
I don't know, man. The most important thing to me is family. Like, I might be a savage killer, dog, whatever. It depends on which way. But, man, I want to make sure that I'm loyal to my wife to the end. I do not want to be somebody that came from nothing, that achieved a lot of success, and then became one of those statistics. You know, I want to be the patriarch of a tribe. And my kids and them laugh at me about it because that's part of that lion animal thing. I see things that way. You know, I want to be my Pawpaw Johnson, man. I want to be the guy that whatever's wrong, if you're part of my family or in my circle, I want everybody to be like, man, that's where we went when we had problems. So you got to convert from the warrior to the. Somebody joked with me the other day, and they said, "Well, you're trying to be Yoda now, or something."
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, "Man, I'm trying. Bro. I'm trying. Dog. I'm doing all I can do." But no, man, life has given me a lot of experiences. I'm an excessive guy. I've lived in a lot of different hot spots of life. I've been, the only white kid in Mossville drinking 40-ounce St. Ides. I've been, the only guy that probably ain't a cowboy at the rodeo. I can hang with everybody. I've always kind of been that guy that can just melt in and find my way, And in my adult life, from the church to the car business, all the different hot spots I've been on, they all served a purpose, and they all contributed to who I am now. And I don't think that I've arrived, but I know that I'm not chasing. Every day of my life, we get up to do what? Like, we get up for money. And that's a terrible, evil thought, but it's true.
I agree.
It doesn't make you a bad guy, because if you don't, people don't eat and the lights go off. I mean, that's facts.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how much money I have or don't have, and I'm not here to talk about that, but what I can tell you is my lights are going to be on for the rest of my life. I already figured that out. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So now it frees you up mentally. A lot of people aren't willing to, they're not free at 47 yet to have that. What do I want to be? I don't have to be anything anymore. So what do I want to be?
So I guess now it makes sense where that transition is coming from. To it,
like, I'm not chasing the next meal anymore.
Yeah.
The meals are prepackaged. Unless my wife leaves me and I get a meth problem, and I go to the casino, which I don't gamble. Like, anything can happen. Okay, but aside from major events like that, I don't have to hunt. So what do I want to do now?
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
I mean, I get it.
I get it. I finally understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like is there anything else that you like?
No, man. If I don't get to Vic's tonight and meet my wife,
you're in trouble.
We might screw that whole plan I had up of keeping her around.
But like I said, man, once again, man, we really appreciate you stopping by again, because at first it was kind of have a mess up, because we kind of messed up the audio, and to where now you actually gave us the opportunity to do this again a second time. So therefore, we really appreciate you. And then for people that's watching this video, I hope they enjoy this conversation like at least we've enjoyed this conversation. So as per usual, follow, like, share, and subscribe. And then if you're in a car in town, Holla, go to Benoit.com.
BuyBenoit.com and check it all out. And heck, even if you're going to buy from the local dealer, get a price online and keep them honest. But hey,
There you go.
yeah, I'm not trying to, they're all great people. All the car dealers here in Lake Charles, y'all are blessed with good ones. Blessed with good ones here.
Thank you so much for coming to the show, man.
All right, man.
Appreciate it.
All right, man. That's it. That's a wrap. Hey, thank you, man. We really appreciate it. Because I gotta say, I finally understood.